Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Myrtle Beach Classic full show. Initial research, data dive, DFS, all in one night for the alternate field event happening in Myrtle Beach. It is a brand new course, so we have a lot to get into. Let's not waste any more time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytics tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. My X and Instagram, where normally I post research around the tournament of the week. I did so for the Wells Fargo yesterday. Today, with this being a brand new course, did not put anything out there in terms of data. Instead, we're going to go on a hole-by-hole preview of the dunes. But if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contests I play. That'll come out tomorrow after the DFS Tactics show, so give me a follow over at X if you want to see that. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. It's a great way to start your week of preparation, and he updates you with more information throughout the week. Speaking of Gabe and that article, the only way you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show is if you are a subscriber to his article. So go make sure you have done that. You are following him over on social media and subscribe to that article. It is free to do, by the way, because you're going to be able to join us and talk or continue the talk of DFS after calls in his Substack chat. Lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. How much do you know of the dunes, the golf course that is being played or that is hosting the Myrtle Beach? Who is your pick to win this alternate field event? Would love to hear your input on that. And, of course, if you want to talk a little Wells Fargo, we're here for that as well. But let's cover the full show for the 2024 Myrtle Beach Classic. We start, as we normally do, with a research portion of a tournament. Over the GCSA tournament fact sheet, if you happen to see some random flashes of light, some weather is coming in, so you'll have to bear with me as I try to get through as much of this show as I can, knowing that some severe weather is coming in. The Myrtle Beach Classic, the inaugural Myrtle Beach Classic, played at the Dunes Golf and Beach Club in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This is originally a Robert Trent Jones Sr. design, most recently renovated last year to get ready for PGA play. Been renovated a little bit throughout the years, but opened, I believe, in 1948. I could be mistaken about that, but was recently renovated last year. Renovations don't really matter as much for our purposes because this is the first time this course has been seen on the PGA Tour. The Dunes is a fairly long par 71. Of course, not as long as Quail Hollow, the other tournament of the week, but right at 7,350 yards, par 71, 4 par 3s, 4 par 3s, 3 par 5s. Stip at 11.5 to 12. This is probably fast, at least by Fantasy National's designation. Probably looking at fast. The greens are completely, just right at average for PGA Tour, 6,000 square feet. 30 acres of fairway, a little bit misleading because, as I skip ahead a little bit, the average landing areas being for fairway, or the landing areas off the tee, I should say, only about 20 to 25 yards wide, which would be pretty darn narrow. And, of course, we'll go through a hole-by-hole preview of the dunes, but this acreage of fairway is a little bit misleading. This seems to be a pretty narrow course in terms of off the tee. Quite a bit of bunkerage, and a lot of that is around the greens. Water hazards, there's a few of them, but comes into play on 6 holes with water in play at the dunes. We are on Champion Ultra Dwarf Bermuda. Now, I went through last year's GCSAA tournament fact sheets, and I cannot confirm exactly which courses have this exact green surface. If there was a course that only labeled Bermuda, I'm just kind of stuck, just being honest here. There were 3 courses that had what was labeled Champion Bermuda. Now, I don't know if that is Champion Ultra Dwarf Bermuda. If Champion Bermuda is a whole nother separate entity, I don't know. I'm not an agronomist. But the Country Club of Jackson, where the Sanderson Farms is, Sedgefield, the Wyndham Championship, the historical last event of the PGA Tour season before the playoffs, and then TPC Southwind, the host of the FedEx St. Jude. All 3 of those, again, Country Club of Jackson, the Sanderson Farms, Sedgefield, the host of the Wyndham, and TPC Southwind, host of the FedEx St. Jude. Those 3 courses had what is listed as Champion Bermuda. They did not have this Ultra Dwarf listed. So, is that the same thing? Quite possibly. I just don't know. I'm giving you that information as the viewer. So, we're looking at Bermuda greens at the very least. No overseed, nothing like that. We are looking at Bermuda greens. The fairways are what is very common on the PGA Tour, rye overseed and rye overseed in the rough. Only kept at 2 inches long. That would be very short by PGA Tour standards. So it does not appear that the rough is going to be very penalizing to play out of. I would imagine that this course would be a brute, if indeed it is as narrow as it seems, with very tall rough, so they do keep the rough pretty low. Let's take a look at some notes here really quick. Again, the average landing area is 20 to 25 yards wide. Hole 8 will play as a par 4. It is actually listed as a par 5 on Pro Visualizer, so I'll get more into that when we get to Pro Visualizer. Last year's renovations include leveling and regrassing all the tees, building new championship tees on several holes, 1, 2, 6, 8, and 14. So the aforementioned 8th has a new tee for PGA Tour play. Rebuilt some edges for some water. So quite a bit of renovation went into the dunes to get it ready for PGA Tour play. There is a look at the dunes. Golf and Beach Club. Again, just exactly field average in terms of green size. We're at 6,000. Nothing up here really to take a note of. So, biggest takeaways, if you want to find some other Robert Trent Jones Sr. designs, this is a Robert Trent Jones Sr. Original design. It is a fairly long par 71, 7,350 yards. So we're not looking at long course metrics per se. My guess will be fast Bermuda greens. Average green size, few holes with water in play, but a pretty narrow course seemingly. So with that, before we go to Fantasy National, before we go to Pro Visualizer and do a hole-by-hole breakdown, let's go ahead and check the weather very, very quickly for Myrtle Beach for the tournament. Thursday, pretty windy, pretty darn windy. Sustained winds in the low teens, gusts, close to the mid-20s. This is pretty close to the coast, of course, being on or in Myrtle Beach, but pretty darn close to the coast. So you would expect a little bit of wind, perhaps, and then. Looks like there's quite a bit of rain in the forecast on Friday. The wind does slow down or taper off. But with all this rain, I would imagine some delays might creep in as the weather really cools off as well. You see a high of Thursday in the mid-80s, whereas come Friday, it's in the low to mid-70s, so it really, really cools off. Saturday looks pretty calm. Sunday looks fairly calm. Right now, I would think that if the tournament doesn't get delayed, this is a big if, because we don't have the super forecast for Friday yet for Myrtle Beach. If the tournament does not get delayed. I would give a decent little advantage to the Friday PM portion because everybody's dealing with what looks like the same amount of wind Thursday, regardless if you're early or late. Hey, Darnell, let me get through this real quick and I'll acknowledge it. But it's good to see you. I see your comments there. So yeah, I would, if there is no delay, I would think that a Friday PM draw is what you want to focus on. But if there is in fact delays, which looks like it could be the case with all this rain, look at the wind on Saturday morning. It's just the same as most of Friday and all Thursday. So if there are delays, I don't know if we're actually going to get a wave advantage. This is just what I see, a couple of days out from the tournament. So hard to say. Again, I'm going to suggest that if you are playing some Myrtle Beach, you stay on top of the weather forecast. Of course, you can always reach out to me on social media or in the comments of the show. I would be happy to give you an update on what I see for Myrtle Beach. Good evening, Darnell. It's good to see you in chat with a double tournament week this week. Full slate of shows. So we're going to cover everything Myrtle Beach tonight and try to build on some momentum after last week's pretty poor showing, at least on my end, for the Byron Nelson. Hopefully yours was much better than mine. It's good to see you in chat this evening. So there's a look at the weather for Myrtle Beach right now. Again, if you don't think there's going to be a delay, I would give a decent advantage to the Friday PM portion due to the lack of wind and the soft conditions that the players will be facing. If there are delays, and again, I'm just going by what the forecast holds for now, there's going to be just as much wind early on the morning Saturday, which when they would make this up. So hard to say. I had the luxury of being able to stay on top of this tomorrow, stay on top of the weather forecast to see if any wave advantage develops. So with that, let's move to Pro Visualizer. Again, this is a brand new course on the PGA Tour, so absolutely no data behind it. We don't have any shot link data, no strokes gained, nothing. So let's preview the dunes and see what do we think and how do we think the dunes is going to play. Placed 150th out of 17,000, my weekly Yahoo. No money, of course, nailed Tway. Very good. I don't think I was anywhere near Kevin Tway. He might have been middling in my rankings, but I wasn't using him. So good call on your part there. Nobody down, yeah. So very good. I'm glad to hear that you had a very successful Byron Nelson, and we're going to try to keep your momentum, and I'm going to try to build mine this week as we head into the PGA Championship next week. Don't mind my computer. Pro Visualizer really takes a lot out of my system, especially with all the streaming stuff. Let's zoom in here very, very quickly. Let's get an idea for how the course is laid out, at least in terms of lengths. So the front 9, about 3,700 yards. You got a par 5. Remember, this is going to play as a par 4. So my guess is this is going to be a shortened par 4, maybe 480-ish yards. That's a pure guess. I have not seen any official scorecard, but this is not a par 5. This is going to play as a par 4. So the length of the course, whatever length there is for the dunes, is all in the par 3s. 214, 218, 242, and then 181. The par 5 on the front 9 is actually very, very short, 530. And a lot of shorter par 4s, 423, 442, 424. Again, this is a converted par 4, so my guess is it's going to be a fairly long par 4, maybe pushing 500 yards, more likely in that 475 to 490 range. And then on the back 9, again, more short par 4s, 379. I don't think it's drivable, but certainly short par 4. Short par 4 of one very, very long par 5, 604. But the big takeaways, at least from a yardage standpoint, the par 3s are very, very long. 214, 218. Sorry. Gosh dang it, come on. 214, 218, 242, and then 181 is pretty average length for PGA Tour standards. So let's go ahead and jump into a hole-by-hole look of the dunes. Again, all I can do is go by the yardages here on Pro Visualizer. So it looks like hole number 1, straightaway par 4. Looks like it does get very narrow in this landing area, but I want you to notice the landing area they have is a 265. Every single professional is going to, or can carry 265. Not being familiar with the course, if this is wide enough, if this teeing area in the window here is wide enough, professionals are going to be able to carry this over this bunker at 300. Which is that if that's the case, this becomes a very big scoring opportunity. You're going to have, somewhere into the 110 yard range for your approach as opposed to 150. Green protected by bunkers in the front. So it looks like a fairly, I can't say easy, but innocuous or pretty straightforward opening to the dunes here. Hole number 2, a big dogleg left, and a lot of this will depend on what the windows are like for the off the tee, because these landing areas again were 20 to 25 yards wide, but just from satellite view it does look like it can get pretty open. So I'm a little conflicted there. Hole 2 looks like it depends on how aggressive a player wants to get with the driver, if they want to push it along the tree line. But it looks like it's 3 wood or maybe even less in hand to avoid the bunkers. But again, a fairly normal length or mid-length iron into a green, protected by 2 bunkers in front. Again, I don't know anything about the runoffs, if this is a crowned, say, green where it runs away and down, or bowling or undulation. Just don't have any information on that. All I know is that the greens are average in size, 6,000 square feet. We saw that at the GCSA tournament fact sheet. Hole 3, again, another pretty straightaway par 4 here. This one looks really, really wide open. Even for, there's no tree lining here, and this measures 280. Again, professionals are going to be able to cover this bunker. Most of them can hit it 300. So looks like a pretty easy par 4 there. The par 5 fourth, it's all par 5s are set as true 3-shot holes. 280 here. I would say a player probably will be willing to take on these bunkers, would be my guess. Because if they can carry the bunkers, they're setting themselves up for, like a 210, 220 yard approach shot to a par 5 green that is protected by water in front. So my guess is, of the par 5s, this would be the one that players might lay up, because there doesn't look to be a lot of bailout area long or left and right with the bunkers. And of course, players are so averse to hitting into the water. This might be one of them where they decide to lay up. It's hard to say. Especially since it looks like 2 very well strategic bunkers are guarding the teeing area, or guarding the landing area off the tee. But a pretty short par 5 there. 214 yard par 3 fifth, guarded by, big bunkers seem to be guarding a lot of these greens. To what looks like a kidney shaped green. Again, kind of depends on the sloping and undulation. The par 4 sixth, again a slight dogleg left, 280 here, 300. Players might not be able to carry this bunker, but it does look like it's pretty wide open. So I don't know how difficult this is setting up so far. Hole 7, Perhaps one of the more narrow ones would be my guess, with trees on both sides. You got 280 here. If players want to push it, they'll be able to drive over, carry this bunker 300, which would be this yellow line here. So another 144, which would be even less if they decided to take driver and challenge that bunker to a green that's, again, just protected by a couple of bunkers. Hole 8, this is the converted par 5. This will play as a par 4. Remember, that way will play as a par 4. So all we can do is approach this as a long par 4. My guess is the team ground would be somewhere up in here, making it a 480, 490 yard par 4. But again, pretty straightforward. Maybe a slight dogleg left, but not a whole lot here, it doesn't look like. Gosh dang it, stop zooming in. So this is one of the more heavily bunkered greens, but no water in play. Looks like it's just going to demand a pretty good long iron. This might be, my guess is this might be one of the tougher holes on the course, considering it normally plays as a par 5. It's converted to a par 4. And the 9th, long par 3, 218. Yeah, kind of right in front of you. Hole 10. This is the shortest par 4, I think. I highly doubt players are going to try and carry this water. Again, professionals are just so averse to taking that kind of risk going in the water. My guess is this would be a layup because 280 is right here. 300 is this yellow line. I doubt, again, if a player is confident that they can just come over to here, maybe. But for me, I just see this as a 3-wood or a 5-wood and set up a wedge to a green protected by a few bunkers. I don't think this hole would be very difficult unless players decide to really get aggressive with it. Another short par 4, looking like you drive over the coastline, which is kind of cool. But this is only 280. Like, professionals can run that out all the way up to here if they want to. And to a green that really doesn't have a lot of trouble other than that bunker up there, unless you're just really, really far right. So again, might be a visually intimidating hole, but for professionals, I just don't see a lot here with it. I think this would be pretty easy. And again, like a mid-length, probably an 8 or a 9 iron for most professionals with a 150 approach. Hole 12 is the extremely long par 4. This probably is going to be the most difficult hole on the course because it is all carry. You have to carry over the water. You do have some bailout short left, but I mean, trying to carry all water over 242, that's tough no matter who you are. 13, a very, very odd par 5, considering it doesn't look like you can go directly at the hole unless you're Bryson from Bay Hill. A kind of mini-esque Bay Hill 6th hole here, just going the opposite way. So 285, depends on how far professionals want to push it, but and then you come around the lake there. But I want you to notice that lake really doesn't come into play onto the approach. Like with Bay Hill, that lake runs up right to the green. Here it does not. So even though this is a par 5, I would imagine this is probably close to attackable in 2, because it's going to say, 285, we'll say, professionals about 300. So 300, and then, maybe another 290. Yeah, maybe it is a true 3-shotter. Maybe. So this, again, this might be actually another layup. Interesting. I like the design of the hole. I just don't know how difficult it's going to play. Or easy, for that matter. Because it does look like all of the trouble is off the tee on this hole. Hole 14, again, another slight dogleg left. Fairly long. Approach shot at 170, but again, look at this 280 carry that Pro Visualizer is giving it. If the player wants to get aggressive, a lot of them can probably carry this bunker. And that leaves them with a much, much shorter iron or even wedge into this green. That's why I'm thinking that this is going to be a little bit easy, would be my guess for professionals. But that's all speculation considering I haven't seen the course. Moving to the 15th, long straightaway straightaway par 5, not long. Depends on how aggressive the players want to be off the tee, challenging these bunkers. You have to keep it left. But it does look like this is pretty narrow here. But with no water protecting this green, I imagine this is a par 5 that's going to get attacked in 2 by 90 to 95% of the players. As long as you're finding the fairway. Another short par 4 here. 240. This is the 300-yard line here. So it depends on if a player is comfortable with their sand play, because this is the most protected green on the course. Look at all that bunkerage. But 300 plus a little bit of rollout, you might get into the bunker. So it all depends on the style of player. They might lay up to a number that they like, or they can try to push it, a la Genesis 10th hole. Granted, you're not, the Genesis, you're more trying to drive the green as opposed to maybe hit it into this front bunker. Interesting. And then hole 17, pretty straightaway par 3 there, and then the 18th. Could yield some drama come Sunday if we have a close tournament with this water fronting the green. But it looks like a pretty forgivable hole, especially if you're laying back 3 wood, 5 wood maybe. And then it looks like a premium on that second shot there. So there's a look at the hole-by-hole course layout for the dunes. Again, seeing that the GCSA tournament fact sheet said that the landing areas were 20 to 25 yards wide, but yet going through here and seeing how open a lot of those fairways seem to be in terms of trees. Like this looks like it's one of the more narrow landing areas. I don't know how difficult this is going to be off the tee. And I think especially a lot of those holes that we talked about where the professional can really challenge the bunkers that are in the landing area, considering they're placed right at about 300 yards. I do think some professionals will be able to tear this course apart. Depending on what the wind's doing. Like if the wind is into the player's face, maybe not. But that's the unique challenge of getting a course that has never been seen before. So I have my suspicions this might get to be being a birdie fest. We move now to Fantasy National. Not a whole lot of data that we can look at. Actually, before that, I apologize. Let's go to Microsoft Excel just very, very quickly, because I did make the templates, the new course templates for us. So because this is a new course, we don't have that data in Fantasy National. So the whole composition chart, if you will, hole yardages, again, per Pro Visualizer. We have 4 par 3s, 1 medium length, 2 fairly long, and then 1 extremely long par 3. 242. These are at 214 and 218. So all of the length of the course comes in these par 3s. Hey, good evening, Barbarian. Thanks for jumping in chat. It's a double tournament week, so we are covering everything in the alternate field event this week for the Myrtle Beach Classic, research data, whatever little there is, and of course DFS. Good to see you in chat. You just missed the hole-by-hole flyover or talk through each hole of the dunes. So if you missed that, be sure to check that after the show. Hole compositions, again, those 4 par 3s, 2 short par 4s. Again, I don't know if they're drivable, just due to the layout of the hole and whatnot. But 2 short par 4s, but 6 of our 11 par 4s Got that course in my PlayStation game. Nice. How is it? I know PlayStation versus reality is a lot different, but I would be curious to hear, is it as narrow as what GCSAA said, or is it pretty wide open? Because Pro Visualizer made it seem like it was pretty wide open, but GCSAA Tournament Fact Sheet said that the landing areas were about 20 to 25 yards wide in most areas, which would be really narrow, which would mean it would be very difficult to hit those fairways. It's really good EA version. Nice to watch. They did mapping the courses. So yeah, I'd be anxious to hear if you've played that course. How is it, at least when you're playing it on the game? The majority of our par 4s, 6 of the 11, are at 400 to 450 yards. So my guess is that's the range of par 4s we're going to want to focus on. We do have 2 longer par 4s, but they are at 456 and I think maybe 470 something. So they're not overly long. They could very well come into this range as well. And then because I don't know the exact yardage of the converted par 4, the par 4 8th led to, it said 539 yards, but that's a par 5. So I kept it as a par 4, 539 yards. I highly doubt it plays to that, but I'm just being transparent here. I don't know what its official yardage is, so I just kept it in that bucket and let it keep it as a par 4. Play it tonight, let you know tomorrow. I appreciate that. I really do. I would appreciate that, Barbarian. And then our par 5s, we do have 2 still short par 5s, both of them measuring right at 540 yards. I imagine they're both going to get attacked in 2. And then we do have potentially a true 3-shot par 5 that plays at 604. Now, the estimated proximities, again, I took these straight from Pro Visualizer. And as I went through hole by hole, I mentioned several areas where I imagine the professionals will attack those bunkers and try to carry those to set themselves up for even shorter approach shots. But due to the amount of Pro Visualizer having, a bunch of 280 and 270 yard drives to stay short of the bunkers, we have plenty of 150 to 175 approach shots according to Pro Visualizer. 2 of the par 5s. Again, all par 5s are set as true 3-shotters in Pro Visualizer. I do think these par 5s are going to get attacked in 2. So you can move 2 of these over to the 200 plus. But 1 of these is a true 75 to 100 yard approach shot. It's one of those very short par 4s. And the 604 par 5 falls into here, and it's very well possible that does play as a true 3-shotter just due to the layout of the hole winding around the lake. So that could very well stay in here, but I think it's comfortable to think you could put 2 of these approach shot holes from the short to the very long to simulate the players attacking the par 5s in 2. So this is all to say that I wanted to give you this information. This is estimated proximity per Pro Visualizer. Since we have not seen the course, I did nothing with proximity in the mixed condition model. Just did nothing with it. I just didn't feel comfortable because I think some pros will try to challenge those bunkers. Okay, that is a look at the scorecard and estimated proximity chart replicated in Pro Visualizer. Now let's go to Fantasy National very, very quickly because we still need to do the DFS. So in the field this week, just in terms of total performance, Justin Lauer, Ben Griffin, Davis Thompson, Victor Perry, Eric Van Rooyen, Chan Kim, Jimmy Stanger, Andrew Novak, Hayden Springer, and Ben Martin are your top 10 in terms of total performance. We saw that there appears to be quite a bit of wind in the forecast for Myrtle Beach this week, especially Thursday and Friday, the cut portion. So in the past couple of years, in moderate and windy conditions, your top performers in the wind have been Harry Hall, Carson Young, Andrew Novak, Sam Stevens, Dylan Wu, Scott Piercy, Michael Kim, Callum Tarrant, Kevin Yu, and Justin Suh. I think that's all we're going to do in terms of data, especially since this course has not been seen. So we did a whole lot in the research covering hole by hole, very little data. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into the mixed condition model, start transitioning into the DFS portion of the show. So the mixed condition model that I made for this week at Myrtle Beach, and again, this is all speculative. This is all based on how I feel the course is going to play, based on going hole by hole and getting whatever little review that I've seen out there on the interwebs. Do kids even use that word anymore? I don't know. 10% in off the tee. I do think off the tee is going to play a decent factor. It's going to be important that not just for the accuracy, but again, I think there's going to be a pretty decent advantage for the players that can carry those bunkers that I talked about as we went through the course. So I did want to focus on off the tee. 20% in approaches is kind of just a default for me. If a course is brand new, I'm going to put extra weight in strokes gained approach because it's the players that I want to emphasize the most anyway. 5% on Bermuda greens, and you'll notice that I don't have a speed filter. I didn't filter on those specific 3 courses. I didn't feel comfortable trying to correlate champion Bermuda with champion ultra dwarf Bermuda. They might in fact be the same. I just don't know, so I didn't feel comfortable doing that. And if I had to guess, we'd be looking at fast Bermuda greens, considering that the stimp was listed as 11.5 to 12 on GCSA tournament fact sheet, but I just don't know yet. So 5% on total Bermuda, or all Bermuda. 10% in good drives gained. Talked about this with a little bit with the off the tee. Look, if indeed the GCSA tournament fact sheet is correct and these landing areas are as narrow as they say they are, the players are going to be either in those fairway bunkers or in the rough. The rough doesn't seem too penalizing. It's only 2 inches long. So I want to see the players who can find the fairway or they are good enough to hit the green from the rough. So 10% in good drives gained. 5% in sand saves, and I normally don't use sand saves, but it looked like all of the protection, with the exception of maybe a couple of holes, all of the protection around the greens were bunkers. So if a player is going to miss the greens, looks like they're going to have to be pretty adept with their sand play. So 5% in sand saves, 5% in opportunities gained when it's easy. That tells you the angle I'm taking this week. I do think this is going to turn into a slight bit of a birdie fest. I don't know if it's going to be as easy as, say, TPC Craig Ranch last week where we got minus 25 or, those gaudy numbers. But I do think this could reach into the minus 20s. So 5% in opportunities when it's easy, 10% in birdies or better when it's easy. I do think there will be a few eagles on this course, especially with those 2 short par 5s and the shorter par 4s. Rounding out the mixed condition model, 5% in par 3s. I thought about looking at 200 plus par 3s, but that would ignore the 181 par 3, the par 3 17th, and it would ignore the 242, the extremely long par 3. I believe it's the 12th. So I just looked at all par 3s. This could be a slight inaccuracy. It might be best to look at, say, par 3s 200 plus, or 200 to 225 and 225 plus, but with only 5%, I'm just looking at all par 3s. 10%, that might be a mistake on my end. This is supposed to be all par 4s, and then 10% in par 4s 400 to 450. So I think this might be a slight, this looks like it's an error on my part. So might need to redo that for my own purposes tomorrow, but we'll still have a decent idea on who to target. And then 10% in all par 5s. So apologies for that. There's the mixed condition model that I have made for Myrtle Beach this week. Let's go ahead and go to Fantasy National, Microsoft Excel. Take a look at the rankings. We don't have a course value. This is the first time this course has been seen, so nobody has played this on as members of the PGA Tour, that is. And with this being an alternate field event, there were, I think, 12 members at Fantasy National that had looked at players and starred them. So those ownerships would have been very, very volatile. So right now we're just going to look at, kind of like my rankings for the Myrtle Beach Classic. And as I always mention in an alternate field event, if you are playing an alternate field, if you're playing DFS, if you're going to make some wagers for the Myrtle Beach, feel free to reach out to me tomorrow on social media, comments of this show. Be more than happy to help you out when there are a little bit more ownerships in and whatnot. And plus, I believe I need to, so these are the same. I need to fix my mixed condition model. So my apologies. I'm actually just going to hide this column there. Okay. Number 1, Justin Lauer, Victor Puri, Ben Martin, Davis Thompson, Eric Van Rooyen, Kevin Yu, Chan Kim, Carson Young, Andrew Novak, and Patton Gazire are my top 10. Let's go ahead and sort on the price board. Again, without knowing where members of Fantasy National are going, we're just going to be taking a best guess. Harry Higgs and Adam Long got into the field today thanks to KH Lee and Nick Hardy's withdrawal. So I don't have their salary. At least it wasn't out there as of 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I just don't know their prices. So moving into what we do know with the players in the field, we have 4 players in the 10Ks: Eric Van Rooyen, Ben Griffin, Daniel Berger, and Davis Thompson. I don't know how popular Daniel Berger is going to be. I mentioned last week that I wanted to see sustained amounts of success to know that he is healthy. He topped 15s the Byron Nelson last week. So if he is indeed healthy, this is a price bargain. But I would still, I'm going to use a little bit of Daniel Berger, but I'm going to hesitate before I go all in on him or treat him as if he didn't have an injury to see some sustained success. I do like Van Rooyen this week. I think he makes a lot of sense here. Very good approach. Off the tee is fine. He's going to have to clean up his short par 4s, but you see he devours par 5s. He's been good on Bermuda. I like Van Rooyen. Thompson, I think, is a little bit overrated in my thing because the off the tee hasn't been great. He's kind of middling on Bermuda greens as well. So in the 10Ks, I'm going to use Van Rooyen. I imagine he'll be popular, but it's chalk I'll eat. I suppose Ben Griffin's fine. I'm just much more inclined to use Van Rooyen. I will use Berger a little bit. I'm just going to hesitate on using him a whole lot until I know for sure he is 100% healthy. And then Davis Thompson, he's probably going to be popular, which would lead me to think that you might want to fade him. I'm just not a big believer in Davis Thompson, especially at 4th in my rankings. Moving into the 9s, Justin Lauer. Love Justin Lauer this week. I think it's a good fit for him. The off the tee is going to have to be a little bit better, but again, with my preference on approach play, makes a lot of sense. Hitsatsune could be interesting as well. I don't know how I feel about Hostler being this high. He is the number 1 par 5 performer on or in this field, but he struggles on Bermuda, and he's not been good with the irons. So I think Bo Hostler might be a little bit of fool's gold. So I like Justin Lauer. I'll probably come back with Kevin Yu this week. I know he burned me last week, but he played okay. I mean, he shot -5. It was just that the cut line was -6. It was ungodly low. So, I mean, he played okay. I like Justin Lauer. Novak will be pretty good too, I think. He's just going to have to he's going to have to be better at going low when it's easy. He just hadn't done that. But if this does turn into some around the green play, he is very good at sand saves. So I do like that. So in the 9Ks, maybe a little bit of Hitsatsune. I really like Justin Lauer. I like Kevin Yu. I'll use a little bit of Novak as well. Matty Schmid, interesting, I guess, but I'm not necessarily there. Moving to the 8s, like Victor Paris quite a bit. This feels like a very good Victor Paris fit. Chen Kim, interesting. Although he bombed out last week. And he rated out well last week too. Surprising to see S.H. Kim not rate out so well. Considering how well he played last week. And that was the one of the very few things I got right about last week. So it's surprising to see him not rate out so well. I would think S.H. Kim might be a good fit here. Sig is fine. Probably going to be popular, but fine. Take a look at Simikawa as well. The irons aren't showing as well because it's a very small sample size. Dude can play. Top 10 off the tee. Top 25 good drives gained. Top 25 birdies or better. Take a look at Simikawa. Moving into the upper 7s. Kind of like Chesson Hadley, especially if this becomes a putting fest. He is number 2 on Bermuda. So you might want to take a look at Chesson Hadley. Dylan Wu for the irons. His off the tee game has been really bad, but no doubt about it, he can hit his irons very well. I really like Ben Martin. He's going to be popular. It's more chalk I'll eat. I'm hoping Dylan Wu isn't as popular. I do think Dylan Wu could surprise some people this week. Moving into the lower 7s, Campillo could be interesting. Particularly if those par 3s are more important than what I gave them credence to, because he generally plays long par 3s very well. So perhaps take a look at Jorge Campillo. Carson Young rated out well again. Okay, that's fine, I suppose. He does play well in the wind, and there's supposed to be a lot of wind. I think Kazire's getting helped by the fact that I accidentally put the 400 to 450 par 4s in there twice, and he's second in those. Don't think he's all that high. Kelly Craft, somebody you might want to look at as well. I do like Kelly Craft. Top 10 in approach in this field. Top 30 off the tee. Also very good on Bermuda in general. I like Kelly Craft. At the very bottom of the 7s, like Mac Meisner, interesting. I kind of like Mac Meisner. Harry Hall, also somebody that I wouldn't be opposed to looking at. He'd have to be much better with off the tee, but if this is indeed, a layup style course where you're hitting 3 woods and stuff, then I do like that as a fit more for Harry Hall. 6Ks, yeah. This is an alternate field event, so I don't know how much we want to dig into the 6Ks. Again, Campos, David Skins actually could be interesting. Again, with the same kind of line of thinking as Harry Hall. If this is indeed a more of a layup style course, then his irons are going to be accentuated much more. He has played easy rounds well. His small sample size on the PGA Tour. He's also putt well on Bermuda in his small sample size. So David Skins might be worth a look in the 6Ks. Otherwise, there wasn't a lot in the 6Ks that I feel comfortable mentioning. Skins, Campos, Rico Hoey. I mentioned him last week. He rated out well. He still rates out well. Not as high on Hoey this week as I was last week. So, without having any ownerships, we're going to just build some lineups here that we think might be pretty good. They could end up being chalky. We'll have to see. Again, I just really like Eric Van Rooyen this week. So I've generally tried to use Eric Van Rooyen whenever I can. Number 1 player in my model. I kind of don't care how much ownership he has. I really like this fit for Justin Lauer, so I'm going to use him. So that leads us to kind of a stars and scrubs look. If you're comfortable going into the 6Ks, again, as I mentioned, perhaps Skins, maybe Campos. I'm going to use David Skins. to try to free up some amount of salary here. Swivel out of the way. We have about 7,700 per player. I doubt we can go, with the Kevin Yu like a double 9. But, in the 8s, Victor Paris is fine. I think S.H. Kim is going to be fine again this week. Maybe Taiga Semikawa if you want to save a little bit more salary. But I like S.H. Kim in that one. And then moving into the 7s, we have enough for like 7,200 per, but up here like Chesson Hadley at 78 could be interesting. Ben Martin would definitely fit into this. I'd have to drop down to Simikawa to use Ben Martin, but Ben Martin could fit as well. Carson Young, if you're not scared there. Jorge Campillo could be quite interesting. And then, in the low 7s, I mentioned players like Kelly Kraft, Mac Meisner, Harry Hall. Let's use Mac Meisner. So let's leave it 100 on the table. And again, I understand we don't know ownerships here, but I would think this would be fairly unique, especially considering you're willing to drop into the 6Ks in an alternate field event. That's usually not a very common thing to do. Eric Van Rooyen's probably going to be pretty popular, but I don't know how popular S.H. Kim's going to be, even though he did top 5 last week. Campillo, a little bit speculative, but perhaps you believe that the par 3s are going to play a little bit more important. Mac Meisner, who's played pretty darn well recently. Don't remember what he did off the top of my head last week, and then Justin Lauer, number 1 player in my rankings. So I'll stick around for a minute or two. If anyone has any questions or you want to give your thoughts on the Myrtle Beach Classic, how you think it's going to play, I think it's going to probably be easy. So if it's not, I'm going to be off. I'm going to be wrong. But I'll stick around for a couple minutes and see if anybody has any questions in that regard. Of course, no poll question or one and done, since that is saved for the Wells Fargo. I'll be live tomorrow night doing solely the DFS for the Wells Fargo. If you missed the early portions of the show, I did go in a hole-by-hole preview of the Dunes. So after the show wraps up, feel free to rewatch the beginning portion as we went through the Dunes on a hole-by-hole basis. But Darnell and Broberian, thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Especially on an alternate field event. Not necessarily the most popular, but if you're willing to do the work, there's plenty of opportunity there. Especially in the outrights. I was shocked when I looked at the odds boards today and the favorites. The favorites were 25-1. That to me, you never see a golf favorite at 25-1. So I definitely fired off some wagers around the Myrtle Beach Classic because those prices are a whole lot better than what I feel like I was getting at the Wells Fargo. But thanks to you two for jumping in chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel, liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking an in-depth look at sports statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst's view of what he sees. Trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Some weeks are much better than others. And again, a reminder, I'll be live tomorrow for the DFS Tactics show for the Wells Fargo. For all of the wagers that you have played this week, or that you have made this week for the Myrtle Beach Classic, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Myrtle Beach Classic, and until I see you tomorrow night for the DFS Tactics show for the Wells Fargo, may all your bets be profitable.